Welcome to the fourth branch program. Glad you can make it. I am MD. This program is dedicated exclusively for those with common sense, a spirit of patriotism, and a determination for a more perfect union. Stay tuned as we begin the discussion of a very important, interesting, and enlightening topic. Hope to hear from you soon. Happy listening. Hello everyone, I am MD and this is the fourth branch program. Welcome. Today we have a number of topics we will talk about and debate them later in this program. First, we will talk about war on blacks, which is a topic which discusses race relations in America. We will also take a look at anti-Semitism, which is a debate that is raging in Washington today in light of what Congresswoman Ilhan Omar tweeted a few days ago. We will also take a look at lack of leadership in the GOP as to what that means for the country as a whole. And finally, we will address shortly the road to 2020. Stay with us. We will come back to discuss those issues and more. You are on the fourth branch program. I am MD, host of the fourth branch program, inviting you to join me every Saturday at 10:30 a.m. and every weekday at 2 p.m. for discussions of social political issues and to dissect the meaning and the importance of current events as well as to understand topics of legislations. The Fourth Branch Project is not associated with any political party, and we at the Fourth Branch do not have any political agenda or aspiration. Our ultimate objective is to work towards achieving a more perfect union by removing ignorance, the biggest obstacle to our democracy. Stay with us. We will be right back. War on blacks. If you join us for the first time, again, welcome. War on blacks is a topic in which we discuss, we debate race relations in America. Not for the sake of discussion, but rather to find whether there is a possibility of exploring opportunities to change the state of affairs in America in terms of the dynamic, the interaction between blacks and whites. Now, the banner War on Blacks was chosen not to sensationalize the issue, but rather to point to a rather very grim picture that there have been casualties. Now, if you've been watching this program, you pretty much know that we have been talking about this topic starting with Africa. But more specifically, we were looking into the period of slavery. But in order to do that, we had to go all the way to Africa to see how blacks were being chased, captured, tortured, and sold as merchandise, as items here in America. And there were whites who purchased black just like any merchandise and disposed of them whichever way they wished. As such, race relation has never been an easy topic to talk about. Now, we left off at the bottom of the Civil War bridge. Now, if you have not watched this program, I strongly encourage you to take a look at the People Branch YouTube channel. That's where we have the archive or all the previous episodes of this particular topic. On the screen, you'll find the steps that you should use to get to the People Branch channel. Step 1, you go to YouTube, obviously. Step 2, you type People Branch, one word, in the search bar, and you will get to step 3. And from step 3, you click on the logo, you'll get to step 4, where we have all videos of all topics. But you can browse through the People Branch YouTube channel in order for you to find information, to find a video about race relation, which is under the banner War on Blacks, Race Relations, or it also could be under institutionalized racism. Now, while you're there, I encourage you to subscribe to the People Branch YouTube channel, and if you be so kind to also follow me on Twitter and on Facebook. And the reason is so that you can receive invite, you can receive updates, and you can also be kept abreast of activities that we have in regard to this particular movement, if we can call this venue that we're doing. We also would suggest that if you have time to take a look at the peoplebranch.org. That's a website in which we publish a number of articles which cater to various topics, social, political, even scientific. We entertainment as well. So I would encourage you to take a look at that website as well. Now, back to our program. Now, today, instead of talking about, remember we were at the bottom of the Civil War bridge, and we asked the question, what happens after the Civil War? Now, we intend to bring you detail and start walking the path, the road, the route taken after the Civil War, once we step off the bridge, and what exactly happened during the period of time that the Civil War ended up to today. But today we're gonna show you, we're gonna just point out a couple of items. One, we mentioned that me personally believe that the progress that blacks have been claimed, blacks have cheered, that progress, meaning blacks were slaves, they're no longer slaves, blacks could not vote, now they can vote, and so on and so forth. So they use all those details of the past, of a different period, of a different era, and they compare it to today and they say progress. But I actually do not believe there has been any progress made in terms of race relation between blacks and white. And here's the reason. During the period of slavery, white slave owners could do whatever that they want to blacks. They could dispose of, execute, hang, and there was no price to pay. Today, there is no slavery, so there is no white slave owners. So what we have instead is white police officers who pretty much kill blacks, unarmed or not, kill blacks, and they can expect to pay no price for that. And this is not just a statement. Close to 90%, if it's not higher, but just to be on the conservative side, we say close to 90% of black individuals that executed by a cop, usually there will be, contrary to the slavery period, there will be some semblance, some kind of charade of justice where there is a cooling period, and the cop will go to court, and argument will be back and forth, and then, hey, it was justified. As a matter of fact, as I mentioned yesterday, just a couple of days ago, the district attorney as well as the attorney general in the state of California just exonerated two cops who killed a non-black man. Well, the reason, if hold on to your chair, the reason is because, well, the cops were scared because the guy was pointing his wallet at them. That's not funny, because that individual, his family, lost a human being to two cops who simply shoot him because, well, they know that the end result will be exactly what it is today. So across the country, that's what we've been having. And we've been talking about that there is really no difference between the period of slavery and today. The period of slavery, it was white slave owners. Today, it's white cops. So that's why it continues. Now, I'm going to show you a video. And by the way, that's a reason when you hear that there is a white cop who does something ordinary, something that the cop's supposed to do in the first place, the whole country hail him as a hero for doing what he is supposed to do. Now, I used that an example before. I took the city of London. I took the city of London because it's comparable in terms of demographics to a lot of the major cities we have here in the country, like New York City, Chicago, and so on. And the reason I took that example is because in 2017, there were 17 people killed by police, by law enforcement. Now, out of those 17 people, 16 of those people were because of terrorist action. So there were fighting between those terrorists and the police, and those individuals end up dead. There was just one individual, one civilian for 2017, for the whole year. One individual who was killed by a law enforcement. And you know what happened to law enforcement if they kill an individual? They will go back to scratch, ground zero. They have to have partner with them. They have to report whatever that they do has to be run first back, and they have to go back to training, because taking a human life is not accepted, because they value human life. Here in the United States, the same year, 2017, 942 men were executed by cops, 53 women were executed by cops. A total of almost 1,000 people. Contrast that. Those two cities, the example clearly tells us here in the United States, we just don't give a damn about cops killing people, because there is always a reason, there is always a justification. So why would they not continue doing it? Now, some people say talking about war on blacks would exacerbate the problem. Well, here's my answer to you. 1865 was the year that presumably blacks were freed. Now, which means 150 years later, we do not see any difference in terms of the way blacks are dealt with from that period of time to today. The only thing that has been done is a transfer of who can harm blacks. It was the white slave owners. Today is the white police officers. And it is something that's widespread across the country. And I remember since 2014, I've been writing about that. Criminals with badges. And I got a lot of different opinion about that. And as technology helps us to see what's going on, and guess what? If it were just a few bad apples, because that's what the conversation was, a few bad apples, and all of a sudden, those few bad apples have been multiplied to the point you're asking, is there anything good in that basket? Yes, there are a few cops, but it's a handful. The majority are corrupt. When it comes to blacks, when it comes to minority, they do not have any way of feeling safe around cops. I'm going to show you a video. It's something that just happened just a few days ago. A black man in his backyard, cleaning his backyard, picking up trash. Now, nobody knows who called the cops. That is also something that's been going on in the country since Donald Trump has become president. Someone called a cop, and for whatever reason, and show up. The cop that you see on the right side of your screen was actually the first one that you will see in the video. Now, they came and they start talking to that guy. Now, by the way, the guy is cleaning his backyard. He's not at on anybody's property. Now, the cop right in front of him already has his gun pulled. Now, ask yourself the question. Now, let's suppose, for sake of argument, and I really don't care what the person say, but let's suppose, for sake of argument, someone call and say there is a black guy out there doing whatever. Now, you have, by the way, you're going to see that on the video, although I will not show the whole video because I'm pressed for time. But I'll stop the video anyway. But what happened here is that black guy cleaning, removing trash from his own backyard. And those cops show up. There were 7 or 8 of them that show up. According to the video, there were at least 4 of them that already pulled their gun. 4 of those guys, they don't know what's going on, but because it's black, now here's what thank God the guy is still alive. There was no shooting at the guy. But think about it. Every time that a cop shows up and there is a black person, it always ends in tragedy. Now, what is the reason that those cops, those 4 cops, pulled their guns? Can anybody give a reason why a cop would pull his gun at someone who doesn't have one? One individual, 4 cops pulled their gun. Now, I read a lot of comments of people saying that they were just doing their job, and of course it was okay to show up. Now, nobody is arguing that. They were just doing their job. Someone call, they respond to the call. Now, can you envision a scenario where that individual was a white man and those cops, not only you have 8 cops showing up? What is the reason? Now, I would like anybody to explain that to me. That's number 1. And number 2, what is the reason that 4 cops pull their guns at someone who is unarmed? Would you imagine that a white individual would find himself in that predicament? The answer is no. We know that. If anybody has any example of such, I'd like to get that, because this is exactly what we've been talking about when we say war on blacks. Because those predicaments, this is not an isolated case. In fact, I know firsthand in Far Rockaway, New York, that the chief of police would send cops out to antagonize blacks so that they can make arrests. Now, what I'm telling you, even cops can verify that information. I know of at least 2 cops who left that particular precinct because of that, because they thought it was unjust for a chief of police trying to make a mark, or maybe he aspired to politics, whatever the case is. But send cops out there to antagonize blacks so that they can make arrests. Yes, there is a war on blacks, and it's across the country, and it's not just a few cops, it's across the country. Now, let's watch this video, and again, as I mentioned, I will not play the whole video because we are pressed for time, and this is kind of an unbelievable situation that you see someone in his backyard, cleaning his backyard, and whoever called, but those cops, and that's what really irking about the whole thing. You have 8 cops, but not a single one is smart enough to actually be able to figure out there is nothing there for them. There is absolutely nothing. The guy is not doing anything wrong, but they're looking for a way to kill him or to arrest him. and you tell me if it is not a war on blacks in this country.
Go home. There's a camera on you, officer. Take your hand off your gun.
You're on my property with a gun in your hand, threatening to shoot me because I'm picking up trash. I hope that camera's on.
He's picking up trash and you have your hand on your gun? Go home. Go home.
You're gonna see very shortly another police car pulling. Currently there are, as you can see, there are 2 cops on the scene, and you're gonna see very shortly another police car pulling, coming with more cops. A total, you're gonna hear that there are at least 7 or 8 cops on the scene.
Oh my God! This is gross.
I'm not sitting down. I'm not sitting down. You can't make me.
He's picking up trash.
He's got a gun. 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 Just relax. What do you mean? This is my property. This is my house. I live here.
We live here. He's picking up garbage.
Get down and drop it. I'm on duty doing my work and my job. When this officer comes over here, I give him my stuff.
This is gross, dude.
Look at the cop on the right hand side. He already pulled his gun, and you're gonna see also the cop on the left hand side already has its ulcer on button. This is really truly unbelievable in America. If it's blacks, the idea of to serve and protect, when people are talking about police officers, whenever it comes, whenever we're talking about blacks in America, the idea of police there to serve and protect is a joke. In fact, I can tell you without any hesitation that blacks' lives are more in danger with police officers around than not.
This is family.
I live here. I'm a resident of this fucking property. I'm picking up garbage from my fucking dorm. I go to school here. I go to school here. Don't fucking tell me what to do. You guys don't have a goddamn fucking right to be doing this.
No right at all.
Citizen of this country. I fucking pay my taxes.
We fucking live here picking up garbage.
And I feel threatened. Sit down and drop. No! I will not sit down. I refuse to sit down until you guys put your fucking weapons away.
You guys have weapons in your hands. We have garbage clamps. We're picking up the garbage that you created.
Fucking gun away.
Zaid, let it go. Please let it go, Zaid.
I'm not fucking doing a goddamn.
People won't understand.
You came onto my property with your weapons drawn, threatening me at the place that I fucking sleep. How do you feel about that?
Well, the story is it didn't end badly. The gentleman left, but you had for at least a good 15 minutes 8 cops. Of course, in the video, if you wish to watch the video, you can find this video on YouTube, obviously. It's those cops, they were standing there with their hands on their guns for 15 minutes talking to a guy that it's clear, because even if you were to be the most stupid individual, but it's clear that that guy is not doing anything wrong, and yet they all standing there waiting for an opportunity to do something wrong and cover it up and say they felt their life was in danger. This is the state of affair for blacks in America, and this is not an isolated case. As I mentioned earlier, that in Far Rockaway, New York,
Where we live,
cops are being put out there to antagonize blacks, whether to arrest them or kill them, and then concoct a story that they're cleaning up the street. So the idea that war on blacks is a program that exacerbated the situation, well, war on black was not around when this whole thing started. War on Black was not around when all those cops, at this point is when the gentleman was counting the number of cops that's there. You just see that guy with his gun just now has the gun further in front of him, holding the gun with his hand on the gadget. For someone that's simply talking to you in his backyard, cleaning trash, removing garbage. It is unbelievable. Now, the guy on the video, both of them are cursing and screaming. Obviously, I can understand their frustration. I can understand their anger, because it's almost like you cannot be free. You cannot, and those cops are coming and asking him to sit down and asking him. The guy is on his property, for God's sake. He has the right to clean his backyard, and he has the right to simply ignore them. Now, the first cop that was on the premise, was asking the gentleman for his ID. He gave the cop his ID and show his ID, and yet we still have this sin ongoing in America. Yes, people who are here to serve and protect. Hi, I am MD, host of the Fourth Branch program. War on Blacks is a topic added to the Fourth Branch programming in order to discuss the intricacies, the complexities of race relation in America. The goal is threefold. 1. To bring attention to the various forms of prejudice, discrimination, and racism in the country. 2. To expose the undeniable presence of such in every aspect of life and every corner of our society. 3. To extricate us all from the ignorance, the indifference, or the complicity. The ultimate objective is to make the discussions of those issues, racism, prejudice, discrimination, a normal part of our lives. Then, and only then, will we as a society be able to eradicate the problem. Martin Luther King Jr. said, "Nothing in all the world is more dangerous than sincere ignorance and conscientious stupidity." Abraham Joshua Heschel exclaimed, "Racism is man's gravest threat to man, the maximum of hatred for the minimum of reason." Join me in the journey to restore equality. Or would you please get out of the way? Thank you. The United States of America has a lot of problems. Yes, there is no lack of it. We've seen many different issues that, tell us that we are heading to something bad. It could be big, but something bad. For the past 2 years, the problem has been exacerbated. And it is for many different reasons. So let's take a look at something that's been debated in Washington: anti-Semitism. Now, the short version, the simplest version, anti-Semitism is hatred for the Jews, which means whatever ways, whether it's via words, via action, it's actually extreme hatred for Jews. Now, the reason we brought that up is because for the past couple of years, this woman, Ilhan Omar, she is a congresswoman elected in the 2018 midterm election. Now, freshly baked, and the discussion has been around the fact that they believe, or at least the statement that she made, according to everyone, both Democrats and Republicans, there's been an uproar in Washington, which, especially on the Republican side, which demands for her to be removed from the Foreign Affairs Committee, and there is a list of demand for her to be sidelined. Now, anti-Semitism is bad. Nobody argues against that. Just like I just talked about blacks, how blacks are being treated in the country. Now, there is no comparison between blacks and Jews here. But for sake of conversation, we're going to say that, well, it is always bad to treat a group in hostile ways, whether it's via words or via insinuation or whatever means, whatever however subtle those ways are. It's bad because it's hurtful for that individual, for that group. So there is no one who would stand and talk about anti-Semitism as something that's good. But what I am personally not sure that I understand, because I've been reading about the different thread of conversation that pretty much Omar started. I believe there was some kind of discussion in the country, in Washington, and she may have given an interview, and in the interview she must have said something that automatically triggered the alarm of anti-Semitism. Now, I'm not in possession of that information. I simply read the thread of tweet between Omar and other people, and so far I am at a disadvantage because I cannot say that I cannot confirm that whatever she said can be construed as anti-Semitic. Now, here's how this whole thing started. Here's a tweet that she put out there, and she was making a point about the fact that in the House it looks like there has been a push for people to support Israel, right? Now, there is nothing wrong with that, but Omar took offense in that because she believed that her job as a congresswoman is not to have allegiance to another country, but to the people she represents, and to the people that she has interest representing their views. Now, I don't see anything anti-Semitic about saying that, because what was going on in the House, it looks like the push must have upset her because she believed that there has been too much push about supporting Israel. Now, that's people's opinion, and she is entitled to have that opinion. In fact, in Congress, you have people who are against other countries. So now, being against other countries, now Omar, keep that in mind, Omar is not against Israel. She is against the action, and she's against the fact that she's being pushed to I'm not sure that they say to pledge allegiance, but she's being pushed to have some sort of allegiance in the way that she speaks, in the way that she legislates towards Israel. Now, I do understand her position, because if you are in the Middle East and you are a Muslim, and I'm sure that this is a sensitive issue for you because of the fact that, well, Israel has done a lot of wrong to Palestinians, to Muslim people. That's not just a statement. It's well documented. Since Israel has been in existence, Israel has done a lot of wrong to the Palestine. In fact, Israel has defined the UN clause on the UN Charter, which provides the Palestine a portion of the land, and that Israel has been grabbing from the Palestine. So Israel has been doing a lot of wrong, but instead of the world body trying to remedy that, instead of the United States trying to remedy that, what we get instead is the support for Israel. So yes, people in the Middle East, the Muslim, they are upset about the whole thing. So I can understand why Omar would not have allegiance towards Israel. And all she asking is for her job to be about the United States of America. And of course, when pushed further, she said it's about the Benjamin. Now, she was referring to the fact that there are groups, Jewish groups, who that lobby Washington, and there is nothing new about that. That's true. A lot of groups lobby the legislators so that they can gain favor. So far, I don't know exactly what exactly that Mrs. Omar is being chastised for, because up to this point, the only thing I've seen is a congresswoman who refuses to show allegiance towards Israel and who refuses to not speak her mind. And so far, she has spoken her mind. And again, as I mentioned, I don't know what I don't know about whatever else is said. But as far as the thread of tweets that I've seen someone who is simply not a good friend of Israel. Someone who is not going to be pushed to pledge or to show allegiance or to show support for Israel. It's fine, because there are a lot of congressmen who don't show support for other countries. And if that's the case, then we have a serious problem in Washington, because the allegiance is supposed to be to the United States of America. And I wrote an article, and it's clear it's Ilhan Omar is no Steve King. And the reason I wrote that article is to show, actually it's as a rebuttal to what Henry Olsen of the Washington Post wrote, that Ilhan Omar is the Steve King of the left, meaning of the Democrat. And I beg to differ. Now, Henry Olsen has been writing for quite some time. Now, Steve King has been in Washington for over a decade, and Steve King has been a white supremacist, racist individual. Not until January of 2019 had Henry Olsen say anything about Steve King. Now, let me remind you that Ilhan Omar has been in Washington for just a couple of months. Not only she is a freshman, but again, what she said so far, I don't know that I can construe those things as anti-Semitic. But that aside, Henry Olsen gave Steve King a decade for him to criticize Steve King. And now, Ilhan Omar, just 2 months into her job, he already felt that she's a Steve King. Now, that's also the problem that we have in the country, that when it is a minority, everybody wants this opportunity to jump on their throat, on the minority throat. But if it's a white man spreading hatred like Donald Trump has been doing, so far Henry Olsen has been okay with that. Steve King, for a decade, he's been okay with that. Now, this is not to say it's okay for anyone to spread anti-Semitism. That's not what I'm saying. But what I'm trying to say is, number one, Ilhan Omar, up to the point that I'm talking to you, the thread of tweets that I've read, there is nothing anti-Semitic. The only thing I've seen is someone who is no friend of Israel, and someone who refuses to show support for Israel. And it looks like if you do not bow to Israel, you are anti-Semitic. It seems that's what we are heading there for. Now, I did write an article a couple of years ago, actually getting to think about it more than 4 years ago, where the title of the article is Flashing the Anti-Semitism Card, which is what Israel has been doing in the world, that every time that there is something, that there is some sort of movement, there is some sort of action being taken to hold Israel accountable, they scream anti-Semitic. And as for that reason, Israel has been non-compliant with the UN, and nobody has done anything about it. So yes, I am with the group that backs up Ilhan Omar. Ilhan Omar is not in Washington to support Israel. She is in Washington to represent constituent in the of the 5th district in Minnesota. We'll be right back. Join me here on the 4th branch at 10:30 a.m. every Saturday. And every weekday at 2 p.m. This is the 4th branch.
Common sense in a world of chaos.
This program will resume in just a moment. Lack of leadership in the Republican Party. Now, since the presidency of Donald Trump, the Republican Party as a whole has, and we're not talking about, there was only one individual in the Republican Party who tried as much as he could to steer the party in the right direction. That was John McCain. Unfortunately, he passed. And since that time, the Republican Party has completely relinquished its duty, its legislative duty, and following someone. And we're not talking about just anyone, an individual who doesn't have the interest of the country at heart. We know that. We've watched that happening. And we even heard his closest, the person that was closest to him, his personal attorney, tell us that Donald Trump doesn't care an iota about the United States of America. And we've seen it with our own eyes. Everything that Donald Trump does is for Donald Trump, is to enrich Donald Trump. Donald Trump uses the country, the office of the presidency, for one reason and one reason only. And that's why it's so troubling that you have the legislative branch for 2 years in the hands of the Republican, and they decide to do absolutely nothing. But that's not even the worst part. They didn't just decide to do nothing. They actually supported Donald Trump. A number of them even tried to shield him, to collude with him, and to bring the country down. They have together trashed the Constitution of the United States. Now, just to give you a sense, here are a few things that have happened during the time that Donald Trump has been in office. You have the Republican Party completely colluding with Donald Trump, despite the fact that the writing has been on the wall that Donald Trump has had some sort of relationship, has had some sort of collaboration with Russia. Now, you can dance on your head all you want and say, I don't see any relationship. Now, as I mentioned yesterday, what differentiates us, human, from animal is the fact that we can draw conclusion. Because if you cannot, you are not any better than the other animal species. Because if you start seeing all those things happening and you do not have the ability to see what this problem is, we don't need Robert Mueller to tell us there is a problem. Now, put Robert Mueller aside. The very purpose of the legislative branch is to work so that we can preserve the integrity of our government. We can protect our Constitution. Now, if you have a president that all those things are happening around that president, now whether the president is involved or not, let's say for sake of argument you don't know, or you're not sure, but it is the role of the legislative branch to find that out. That's their job. That's what they're supposed to do, and yet they completely relinquish that duty. Now they have a problem because they lost the House. Now they have a problem that there is now a party that's doing exactly that. It is sometimes impossible to understand where those Republicans, whose allegiance they have, because it's one thing that you do not want to do your job, but it's a completely different thing when you're trying to put stumbling block for those who want to do that job. And that's what we have in the Republican Party today. Now, I always say that this program is not a feel-good program, because it's a program that talks about the aspect, what's going on, not what you want to hear. Because you're well aware that for the past 2 years, Republicans did no such thing as oversight. This is the role of the legislative branch, which means what Democrats are doing, whether you like it or not, that's the job. That's what they're supposed to do. Because if they don't do it, automatically the integrity of our government, our Constitution, is worth nothing. The whole point, the whole reason that we talk about this aspect of our government, this is the way the framers of the Constitution have it, that we have 3 branches of the government. Now, the legislative branch is supposed to be the check on the executive branch. Now, you may like the idea that your representatives are not doing the job. And if you do, automatically you fall into the category of someone who wants to live in a country with no rule, with no law, with no constitution. Because that's exactly what it translates to. That you don't want anybody to make certain that the President of the United States doesn't go out of bounds. And that doesn't require for someone to simply say, oh, all right, we don't think there is anything there. That's the role of the legislative branch, is to find exactly what the executive branch is doing, whether that undermine our democracy, whether that undermine our Constitution. Now, if you don't understand that, that's a problem. You do not belong to a country you do not belong to the United States of America, no matter where you were born. Because the United States of America, if you were born, if you are a patriot, you should, that's what your allegiance should be to. You should see to it that those you elect to represent you, you should see to it that they do the job for which you elected them. Now, if you cannot or do not see the importance of your elected official holding the president of the United States accountable, you have no business of talking about democracy. You have no business of talking about constitution. You have no business of talking about freedom, because those things cannot exist unless the legislative branch does the job for which they were that it was created. We had that. We had Donald Trump, as of date, had 5 meetings with Vladimir Putin and nobody in the United States, not the advisor, no one knows what they talk about. Now, that doesn't bother you? You have no business talking about democracy. You have no business talking about constitution. You have no business talking about rights, because there is no such thing without the Constitution. The Constitution is protected so that all those things, whether it's Donald Trump or anybody else in the Oval Office, we, the people, can have that. Now, if you think it's okay to trash that, you have no business talking about freedom in this country. You have no business about talking about constitutional rights, because you do not have any. Because you do not support it, then you should not be talking about that. This is the essence of the republic. This is what makes the United States the envy of the world. Because if anybody, that's why we say no one is above the law. So if someone does something, whether we like it or not, whether we support the person or not, it is the duty of the legislative branch to hold that individual accountable. Bill Clinton was impeached for personal matters. Yes, for personal matters, he was impeached. And now we have a president that literally put the country in jeopardy, put our freedom, our democracy, our government in jeopardy. And we have people in the legislative branch that refuse to do the job of holding the president of the United States accountable. I'm not sure exactly how you see that as being okay. It is not okay.
Ignorance, they say, is the biggest threat to any democracy. Indeed, it is. Plato, a Greek philosopher born in 427 BC, said that ignorance is the root and stem of all evil. Today, members in the Republican Party wear ignorance as a badge of honor, while the rest of the country watch powerless the destruction of a country which was once the envy of the world. The media is the enemy of the country, said Donald Trump. The Democrat legislators are obstructionists for not going along with everything the president wants. The Department of Justice is biased for investigating corruption in the Trump administration. This is the United States of America. Any question? Donald Trump is wrong to call the media the enemy of the people. Throughout history, dictators, authoritarians have always tried to delegitimize the media in order to get away with corruption, scandal, and yes, even abuse. Adolf Hitler did exactly the same thing in 1933, accusing the media of fabrication. Journalists are not in the business of fairness. Our only business, is to be objective. It is our duty to hold Trump and every administration accountable. Today, it is urgent. It is necessary. It is critical. Our very freedom depends on it.
In light of what been going on in the country, and a lot has been going on, we currently have a United States of America which is no longer the leader of the world. Nobody anymore seek the guidance of the United States, and we know why. We have in the Oval Office an individual who doesn't care an iota about the country, an individual who simply sees himself as being the reason he is in the Oval Office. He used the Oval Office for personal gain. He not only here in the United States where he done favor for people, and then in return expect people to do him favor. He is doing everything that is unacceptable, putting people in position so that they can protect him, just like any other mafia organization, because you want people in different places so that you can go to them when you have a need. And that's what Donald Trump has done. He tried to do the same thing with the agencies, FBI, CIA. He tried to do the same thing with the Department of Justice. He only sees one person. Now, anybody who has even an average intelligence should be able to see clear. And that's why I say it is very important that when I do this program, I don't do it to make people feel good, and I don't do it for one party, in favor of one party against the other, but rather to point to the problems that we have, because there is only one United States of America. Now, no matter which party you belong to, anything that happened to the United States happened to everybody. It's one boat. I always make this reference, use this analogy. In that boat, if the boat is sinking, everybody on board will be affected, will be impacted. As such, even when you see people doing things that are wrong, that are bad, things that they do not even understand the impact of what they do, it falls on the rest of us not only to do the right thing, but also to try to talk those people to their senses so that they can see what they're doing is actually hurting not the other party, but hurting the country and hurting future generations. Now, when you elect a president, you elect the president to serve the whole country. Now, there is no mystery here that we know Donald Trump doesn't serve the whole country. He doesn't care about the whole country. We know that. Anything that happens, if you benefit, it's just what we call a byproduct of. Not because it was meant for you to benefit, not because he had you in mind, like when he's saying that, well, there is low unemployment in black community, as if he did anything to make that happen. He didn't do anything. This is a trend that was ongoing for 6 years, and that continues. So taking credit for it, I couldn't care less if he were to take credit for it, but pretending that he's doing something for the black community is really pretty laughable, because Donald Trump has not enacted anything, has not passed any law, has not made any kind of activities that would tell you that, oh, that was geared exclusively to benefit blacks. Now, all that aside, one has to realize that the country is going down a wrong path. We have someone in the Oval Office that lies constantly. Me, I've already given up, and I've already adopted the behavior that no matter what Donald Trump says, mean absolutely nothing, because I already know right off the bat it's a lie. A lot of people waste their time trying to analyze, fact check Donald Trump. A better word would be lie check, really, to find out if there is any truth that's embedded within his lies, because I don't even understand what fact check would do in terms of when Donald Trump opened his mouth. Whatever he says, it's a guarantee. Whatever Donald Trump says, you can take it to the bank, it's a lie. It's exaggerated, it's inflated, it's concocted, it's just pure lies. That's why it is extremely important. It is urgent that this election is not about just kicking Donald Trump out of the Oval Office. That will happen, I guarantee you that. I already wrote on that. I already wrote an article to that effect. Now, I haven't done what I've been doing for the past couple of decades, which is pretty much writing about who is going to be the next president of the United States. But I already eliminated, despite all the noise you're hearing, despite all the analysis you're hearing that Donald Trump may get reelected, all this jazz. Mark my words, today is what, 8, 7? What is it? Today is the March 7, 2019. Mark my words, there is no way in the world, there is no path at all for Donald Trump to be re-elected. In fact, I use a very what I consider a memorable sentence to express that. I said that in 2016, nobody's on planet Earth expected Donald Trump to win, but he did. In 2020, all these fanatics will do everything, including selling their soul to the devil, to get Donald Trump reelected. It will not. It doesn't have any chance of being reelected. And this is not something I'm going to go back on, because I did write an article and I prove in the article why I came to the conclusion that Donald Trump will not be reelected. On another program, I will present to you a number of different times I mentioned, especially for the 2016, about all the individuals who ran, how accurate I was to the T, 100%. So I will present that to you. But for now, the road to 2020 should be restoring decency in the presidency. That should be that. All the candidates should embrace that mantra, that the road to 2020 is to restore decency in the Oval Office. Because currently, all we had, Donald Trump, was a campaign on draining the swamp. My God, do we see what we have? I don't even know whether we can call it a swamp, because people can live in a swamp. Well, not quite, but this is filth. The administration we have today in the Oval Office is filth. It's not just swamp, it's filthy swamp. For someone who ran or campaigned on draining the swamp. Instead of draining the swamp, he brings more filth into the swamp and makes it really unbearable, stinchy. I don't even live near Washington. I can smell the stench. Hundreds of miles, several hundreds of miles away. So the road to 2020, that's my advice to the candidate, and I really wish, and I'm praying that there is someone, a decent individual, who actually muster enough courage to challenge Donald Trump, because the country doesn't deserve what he got. We deserve better. I really pray that someone in the Republican Party challenges Donald Trump, because Donald Trump should have never been in the Oval Office. He had diminished, desecrated an office that the world consider important.
Ignorance, they say, is the biggest threat to any democracy. Indeed, it is. Plato, a Greek philosopher born in 427 BC, said that ignorance is the root and stem of all evil. Today, members in the Republican Party wear ignorance as a badge of honor, while the rest of the country watch powerless the destruction of a country which was once the envy of the world. The media is the enemy of the country, said Donald Trump. The Democrat legislators are obstructionists for not going along with everything the president wants. The Department of Justice is biased for investigating corruption in the Trump administration. This is the United States of America. Any question? Donald Trump is wrong to call the media the enemy of the people. Throughout history, dictators, authoritarians have always tried to delegitimize the media in order to get away with corruption, scandal, and yes, even abuse. Adolf Hitler did exactly the same thing in 1933, accusing the media of fabrication. Journalists are not in the business of fairness. Our only business is to be objective. It is our duty to hold Trump and every administration accountable. Today, it is urgent. It is necessary. It is critical. Our very freedom depends on it.
I hope you enjoy the program. If you have questions, comments, criticism, please do not hesitate to contact us. Should you have a topic you would like us to talk about, please forward it to us. We'll research it and we'll debate it right here on the Fourth Branch. In the meantime, I hope you have a wonderful afternoon or evening, whichever it happened to be.
The Fourth Branch podcast is brought to you in collaboration with the People Branch publication, which can be found on the People Branch website. located at peoplebranch.org. That's peoplebranch.org. That's peoplebranch.org website, in which you will find a number of very interesting articles. My name is Mike Duchesne, MD for short. I hope you have a great afternoon or a great evening, whichever it happens to be. Hopefully you can join me again next time for another interesting episode of this podcast. That was the Fourth Branch, live from New York. Good day.
What if hip-hop never existed? Question. Do you think there'd be as many heads screaming out, stop snitching? What if Adam and Eve ain't eat the fruit? You think we'd be able to see the truth? Or what if Albert Einstein ain't think of the nuke? Or Smith & Wesson ain't teach us to shoot? You think there'd be as many plays out there if there was no boost? Matter of fact, what if white man hung off a noose? Would it still be cool to say nigga? Or maybe we would make six figures? Or would we wanna be crackers? And all the whites would be rappers. What if Martin Luther King survived? You think the New Orleans flood would've caused him to drop and die? I wonder what if and see what is. Stand back from the picture and ask yourself why. What if life wasn't all you thought? What if everything you knew was gone? What if we switched to rights and wrongs? You think you'd change your route to the road we on? What if life wasn't all you thought? What if everything you knew was gone? What if we switched to rights and wrongs? You think you'd change your route to the road we on? If Christopher Wallace never got murked, how much money would Sean Carter be worth? What if Tupac never got hit with the flame? Would the game still have change filled with these lames? What if Jabari wasn't speeding down the street? What if the bullet Malcolm sent never hit Zeke? A black guy dropped off at the house instead of the stop? Or Ali never got bopped by the cops? What if the little homie Easy didn't die? Stand back from the picture and ask yourself why. What if life wasn't all you thought? What if everything you knew was gone? What if we switched to rights and wrongs? You think you'd change your route to the road we on? What if life wasn't all you thought? What if everything you knew was gone? What if we switched to rights and wrongs? You think you'd change your route to the road we on? What if?